25 Hollywood legends who were drunk all the time, and studios always hid the truth. Which legend went to the grave with his favorite whiskey tucked beside him? And which Oscar nominee swore he was totally fine after 2 bottles of vodka? Hollywood sold us sparkle. Off camera, liquor wrote the footnotes. Studios polished reputations while hired fixers, smothered bar fights, DUI mugshots, and set meltdowns. Some stars spiked coffee like it was costume. Others turned corporate deals into bottomless minibars. Here's what the publicists never mentioned. Some clawed their way back, while one story ends in a crime scene. So chilling the industry still changes the subject. Stick with me to the very end. That last chapter doesn't just sting, it rewires how you think fame really works. As we go, watch for the tricks used to hide chaos in plain sight. Quick challenge before we start. Which cover-up tactic do you think your favorite classic star relied on? Toss a guess below. Odds are you'll miss at least 3. Number 25. Spencer Tracy, disappearing into room 312. Imagine the scene. The shoot wraps. He shakes hands, flashes a practiced smile, then vaporizes. Not to Capri, not to Palm Springs, to a nameless hotel room with blackout curtains, cash on the dresser, and a stack of bottles tall as the nightstand. Hospital notes from 1942, Johns Hopkins, describe a pattern. 7 to 10 days after each film, Tracy vanished and drank until faces blurred into wallpaper. The cycle had gears. Vanish, soak, resurface dripping with Catholic guilt, promise reform, act brilliantly. Then book the next room under an alias. He hated being seen sloppy, so he made sure no one saw him at all. No bartender to cut him off, no friend to yank a glass away. He once confided to a priest he feared dying drunk more than destitute. The advice, fear neither, get help, didn't stick. Even after 5 sober years, one glance at a martini stem could make his hand tremble like he was back on day 1. Why does a man at the top lock himself away like a fugitive? Drop your theory, because the next entry required carpenters to bend reality. Number 24, Bernard Lee, intelligence chief, keyhole drinker. For 11 Bond films, he was M, composed, commanding, no cracks in the facade. Off camera, grief over a wife, lost to a house fire, and bills piling up pushed him toward the same liquid escape as so many peers. Crews tried locking liquor out of his room, so he adapted. Helpers threaded a straw through the dressing room keyhole so he could sip without breaking the lock. The spy master, running MI6, was literally running his own covert ops for brandy. He labeled a thermos tea in block letters, stuffed with something brown and far stronger. He insisted on cash per diem, so creditors couldn't garnish it. Richard Burton, no stranger to a pour, joked he couldn't keep pace with Lee. If Burton taps out, you're in unexplored territory. Picture Lee buttoning his collar, rehearsing lines about national security, then crouching to a keyhole like a kid sneaking syrup. Tragic and absurd simultaneously, from keyholes to carpentry. Our next TV lawmen needed a set turned sideways, just to look steady. Number 23, Broderick Crawford, the sideways set solution. Highway Patrol sold him as granite in a badge. Behind the camera, walls were built horizontally so he could lie flat and still appear to lean. Lighting plans flipped, cameras recalibrated, an entire optical trick just to disguise a star who couldn't stay upright. His rap sheet offset grew. Multiple DUIs earned him an inside nickname at the actual California Highway Patrol, Old 5002, the code for an impaired driver. Real officers watched their fictional chief, knowing he fit the profile they cuffed nightly. Meanwhile, Crawford slipped cash to production assistants to smuggle flasks onto set, while producers begged CHP advisors to babysit their lead. Camera operators framed him chest up to hide jelly legs. When the studio pulled his license, he hired drivers, then ordered bar stops between takes. Crew jokes about gravity optional days concealed real fear. If he went down, insurers might shut the whole show. If carpenters were rebuilding physics for him, wait till you hear about the prairie dad who poured his shots into coffee. Number 22, Michael Landon, the coffee mug ruse. Little House on the Prairie was Sunday evening wholesomeness, Behind that smile, Landon dosed coffee with whiskey and tucked vodka into thermoses, metering it through marathon days without flubbing a line. Castmates knew he drank. Nobody grasped the volume. Melissa Gilbert later said the scent of booze baked into her childhood so deeply she gravitated toward partners who smelled like alcohol because it felt familiar. Layer in a 4-pack a day unfiltered cigarette habit, and you've got a body under siege. Crew members remember him refreshing mugs between angles, cracking jokes so no one pressed harder. Offset, the local bar was basically part of wardrobe. When cancer came, he still tried to stage manage the narrative on TV. Fans mailed letters thanking Pa for raising them. He autographed photos while topping off another inch. Image can armor you and poison you. If TV's ideal dad hit it that well, picture a horror icon with a pistol in one hand and scotch in the other. Number 21, Bela Lugosi. Tears, a gun, and a glass. The man who made vampires iconic fought bottles first, morphine second. Director Ed Wood found him behind a curtain, tears streaking, a revolver shaking in his grip, whispering that the night felt endless. Wood, drowning in his own vices, grabbed scotch instead of security. One swallow. The pistol clattered. Crisis paused. Spiral knot. In 1955, Lugosi went to court asking for state-funded rehab, insisting he was ill, not wicked. Headlines mocked Dracula and detox. Younger actors paid attention. After treatment, he toured tiny stages, soaking up applause like oxygen. Clapping can drown cravings for a scene or two. Desperation has a flavor. For our next legend, it tasted a lot like perfume. Number 20, John Barrymore, When Chanel Became Chaser. John Barrymore, Shakespeare's golden tongue, cinema's Hyde, once gulped his wife's perfume after draining every bottle in reach. By the 30s, the memory that had devoured Hamlet overnight needed cue cards just to survive a scene. During dinner at 8, audiences laughed at his washed-up drunk actor. They didn't realize he was barely acting. His second wife hid mouthwash and cologne. He still hunted them down. He'd faint at rehearsal, wake insisting he was fine, reach for anything with alcohol content. That surname still opens doors in Hollywood. His arc hangs beside those doors as a warning. Talent can't outdrink biology. A horror heir learned the same lesson. The Wolfman's real curse came in a glass. Number 19, Lon Cheney Jr., Monsters Off Screen. Alcohol and depression shadowed Cheney like a contract clause. He was barred from William Randolph Hearst's Xanadu for trying to get Marion Davies completely blitzed, accused of stumbling through live television, and, after Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, reportedly tried to end it all. Born Creighton Cheney, he drowned his father's shadow in whiskey. Typecast as Monster Guy, he numbed the sting with shots. Archival footage shows him slurring through autograph lines, still gentle enough to sign every scrap. Monsters get tired of masks, too. If a monster was exiled, a swashbuckler earned a nickname that sounded like a diagnosis. Number 18, Errol Flynn, Cirrhosis by the Sea. Flynn's Malibu yacht carried its own punchline, Cirrhosis by the Sea. Cocaine on trays, whispers about 2 young guests, decanters within reach everywhere. He and David Niven clinked glasses through their bachelor years. He even entertained Fidel Castro. The boat was a floating neutral zone. Laws, politics, sobriety suspended. Crew swore they propped him upright between takes, hovering just outside frame to catch him. Stunt coordinators reworked fights to account for a lead who might buckle mid-swing. Doctors told him in his 30s his heart and lungs were wrecked. He shrugged and signaled the bartender. At 50, the ticker gave out. Robin Hood couldn't rob death twice. He partied himself into myth and an early grave. The next matinee idol rewired his brain to quit. Number 17, Cary Grant, 100 guided trips to clarity. Talk therapy stalled. Dr. Mortimer Hartman proposed legally guided LSD sessions. Grant took roughly 100 in the 50s, in clinical settings, to cut through psychic scar tissue. He described sinking into childhood trauma and surfacing calmer, sober, genuinely content. He nudged friends to try it. Paramount royalty. Judy Balaban reportedly said, if it's good enough for Cary Grant, he didn't just stop drinking, he molted the neuroses. In a time when saying therapy could nuke careers, he gambled everything for sanity. Turns out that's star power too. Psychedelics rescued one icon. Rehab and sheer will rescued the next. Pointed ears included. Number 16, Leonard Nimoy, Logic on Screen, a shield off it. Nimoy called booze his shield against Star Trek's pressure cooker. 12-hour days in latex ears, fans treating him like an actual Vulcan. William Shatner later admitted he saw it and shrugged it off. After the series, Nimoy chose rehab and stayed dry for decades. Another demon lingered: cigarettes. COPD ended him at 83, but he never relapsed into the bottle. 2 memoirs, I Am Not Spock, Then I Am Spock. Bookend a man learning to be both icon and himself without a drink in his hand. In the 2000s, he poured energy into photography. His Shekinah project stirred its own controversy, proof his creative drive survived sobriety. He stepped back from the cliff. The next comic didn't. He dove into gin like a swimming pool. Number 15, W.C. Fields, 2 quarts, 1 holiday exit. Fields' cranky, lush persona wasn't an act. Accounts peg him at 2 quarts of gin daily, white-knuckling through DTs just to finish Poppy. Paramount finally said no, too risky. Radio saved him. Less strain on a failing body, easier to mask shaky hands. He labeled bottles OJ, kept flasks in prop desks. Studio accountants tried docking him for damage. He threatened to sue, with a belch for punctuation. Comedy was armor. His liver took every hit. He died on Christmas, the holiday he ribbed for years, bleeding internally. Coincidence or cosmic punchline? Either way, the laugh hurt. Number 14, Peter O'Toole, Booze Bravery in the Desert. O'Toole told David Letterman drinking was as normal as a necktie in his crowd. On Lawrence of Arabia, he and Omar Sharif feared camels so much they stayed buzzed to ride them. Not a metaphor. Assistant directors actually scheduled around their steadying swigs. Handlers braced for tipsy riders. Stomach surgery later forced him dry. He joked about blank spots in his magnum opus. The chuckle hit a wince. I wasn't an alcoholic, just a drinking man. He'd dance around definitions. He refused a knighthood, haunted pubs for the company, and once closed a Dublin bar with Burton, then bought breakfast for the owner. Desert jitters are quaint. Scotch and sharks? That's carnage. Number 13, Robert Shaw. The shark wasn't the only thing biting. Jaws had animatronics failing and weather fighting back. Shaw added Scotch-fueled eruptions. Richard Dreyfuss finally grabbed Shaw's glass and flung it straight into the ocean. Irony. Shaw's USS Indianapolis monologue, a gut punch of drunken terror, landed in one perfect take because he was genuinely lit. Genius and self-destruction swam together like a school. Tax exile, headaches, and money stress primed him before the first pour. He died of a heart attack at 51, not long after finishing a play. Dreyfuss says he respected the art, hated the behavior. Respect and resentment can share a trailer. Pause the reel. Digging up this stuff takes weeks. Memoirs, court filings, interviews buried under studio gloss. If it's clicking, tap subscribe so the algorithm doesn't bury the next dive. Free for you, huge for this channel. Which entry floored you most so far? All right, onward. One show bent reality for its star. Another performer never wanted the spotlight to begin with. Number was the real habit. Some get second chances. Others drink to disappear because they never chose the multicolor billboards. Number 11, Gail Russell. Fame she didn't want. Paramount saw her face. Her mother saw dollar signs. Gail Russell saw panic. Alcohol turned premieres into tolerable blurs. DUIs stacked. A sanitarium in Seattle offered a reset. John Wayne's company financed a comeback, but the ground wouldn't hold. She was found alone in LA, acute and chronic alcoholism stamped flat in the report. Her breakout, The Uninvited, was about ghosts. Off-screen, she was haunted by stage fright so loud it rattled glasses. Neighbors remembered midnight painting sprees. Then the clink of a bottle. Quiet crafts, don't drown loud dread. She drank to vanish. The next bombshell drank until every tabloid headline screamed. Number 10, Barbara Payton. From Cooper to Courtrooms. She starred opposite Gary Cooper, flirted with James Cagney, married Francho Tone, then slid into arrests, forged checks, and survival sex work. Cops once found her asleep at a Sunset Boulevard bus stop in a coat and swimsuit. Custody gone, bars became her living room, her liver folded at 39. Her memoir, I Am Not Ashamed, reads like defiance set to print. A public brawl between Tone and Tom Neal broke Tone's nose and her career in one night. Tone forgave, Hollywood didn't. Forgiveness rarely trends. Payton imploded out loud. The next icon hid hers behind a cola empire. Number 9. Joan Crawford. Pepsi for photos, liquor for life. Marrying PepsiCo's CEO turned Crawford into a global ambassador. Her standard hotel setup, multiple fifths, vodka, bourbon, gin, scotch, plus champagne, and a case of Pepsi, mostly for optics. Christina Crawford's memoir mapped mood swings to proof percentages. Corporate budgets make perfect camouflage. When Pepsi forced her off the board in '73, she kept a tiny bar behind drapes at home, decanters labeled like props. No wire hangers became meme fodder. The bottles weren't a punchline. Board minutes later showed executives whispering about excesses while pocketing profits. Brands masked her stash. A crooner masked his with apple juice. Number 8. Dean Martin. Amber Illusion. Everyone knew Dino drank like a fish. He'd crack that he pitied non-drinkers. Mornings were as good as their day ever got. Insiders insist that amber liquid was often apple juice. He let the rumor mill enrich him, while keeping a house rule. Home for dinner, one real nightcap max. Men copied the act, women melted. He stayed in control by letting fans believe he wasn't. Stagehands swapped his glass on the Dean Martin show. The roasts leaned into the gag while he counted beats like a metronome. He was on golf greens at dawn, while the lush slept it off. Once, he slipped out mid-roast to tuck his kids in. Brand intact. Priorities obvious. He faked it flawlessly. The next tough guy's act was blazing real. Number 7. Humphrey Bogart, The Midnight Switch. Friends said, delightful until about 11:30 p.m. Then, a switch flipped. Pajamas at Warner Brothers, riding a bicycle around the lot, drunkenly yanking a restaurant safe into Beverly Hills Boulevard. Classic late-night bogey. On Sahara, he wouldn't step out of his room unless Mayo Methot delivered martinis in a thermos. Clubs banned him. Cancer ended the story in '57, but the glass had been winning for years. He and Lauren Bacall were electric. Booze and rage torched his marriage to sluggy Methot. Bogey's cool was curated. The chaos wasn't. In court, over that safe stunt, he cracked a joke and dodged a heavy fine. Judges laugh until they're done laughing. A thermos seems tame compared to what went down in Malta. Number 6. Oliver Reed. Drain every bar. Charm every woman. Ridley Scott gave Reed Proximo on one condition: no booze till rap. Reed obeyed until Malta. There, he reportedly outdrank Royal Navy sailors. Tall beers, rum rounds, uncounted whiskey shots. His heart stopped mid-contest. He'd once said he regretted not draining every bar and charming every woman alive. As epitaphs go, bleak. He wore a bar fight scar like a medal and got booted from talk shows for stumbling in. Biographers group him with Burton, Harris, O'Toole, the Hellraisers, who inhaled booze like oxygen. Crew said he was razor-sharp, sober on Gladiator, and heartbroken. He couldn't toast. Discipline can feel like exile. He exited at the bar. The next TV idol's collapse was bankrolled by history's fattest TV paycheck. Number 5. Jan Michael Vincent. The $1 Million Tailspin. Airwolf made Vincent TV's highest-paid actor. The money amplified everything. Alcohol first, cocaine second. Tardiness, no shows, ballooning budgets. The network pulled the plug. Then came DUIs, a wreck that cost him a leg. Domestic violence charges, a face fast-forward aged by excess. Cash doesn't cure demons, it rents them mansions. He'd been the golden boy in Big Wednesday and Hooper. By the 90s, he gave interviews from a wheelchair, slurring explanations even he didn't buy. By the 2000s, disability checks replaced residuals. The helicopter money was gone. The bottles weren't. Television riches fueled his fall. The next crooner's ritual was literally buried with him. Number 4. Frank Sinatra, 4 cubes, 2 fingers, splash. Sinatra's Jack ritual, 4 ice cubes, 2 fingers, quick water, became folklore. His doctor supposedly logged a bottle a day. The Rat Pack joked about a U.S. Olympic drinking squad, but Ava Gardner knew gin flipped his switch from charm to danger. In 1998, they tucked a bottle of Jack in his casket. He didn't just love a brand, he branded himself with it. He carried 10 dimes for emergency payphones. Superstition, wife-proven. Jack Daniel's sales spiked whenever he name-dropped. Free ads, fatal devotion. The poor soothed his voice, fueled his temper, fractured marriages. He took whiskey to the grave. The next violet-eyed queen dragged addiction into the sunlight and rewrote the script. Number 3, Elizabeth Taylor, shattering the stigma. 1983. Taylor checked into the Betty Ford Center, publicly. Overnight, addiction shifted from whispered sin to treatable illness. She came out sober and threw her weight behind AIDS activism, raising millions. One fearless move gave thousands permission to seek help. Recovery became part of her legend. She'd almost died of pneumonia, fought a brain tumor, and still said, "I went to Betty Ford to save my life." Jewels couldn't save her, honesty did. At a 1985 AIDS benefit, she raised cash and, more critically, permission to care out loud. She fractured stigma. The next Brit tried moderation by the bottle. Number 2, Richard Burton, I'm cutting down to 1. 2 to 3 bottles of vodka a day. And he'd tell a director he was cutting back to 1. On The Klansman, they filmed him sitting or lying down. Standing was too risky. Rehab finally happened as his marriage to Taylor exploded in headlines, but decades of damage had already stamped the expiration date. He died at 58. Oscar nods don't buy organs. His diaries drip with lyrical self-loathing and tomorrow promises. His father drank, he drank pricier. He wrote, "I'll be better tomorrow," and tomorrow kept uncorking itself. Think you've heard the worst? One more story says otherwise. Number 1, Gig Young. The award, the bride, the revolver. Gig Young had an Oscar on a shelf and a new wife, Kim Schmidt, in his apartment. 3 weeks later, October 19th, 1978, police found them both gone. Investigators concluded he took her life, then his own. No note, no motive that settles the mind. Just a riddle with an empty bottle at its feet. Born Byron Barr, he changed his name, wives, and public persona, never the habit. Valium stacked on alcohol, gigs slipping. Mel Brooks fired him from Blazing Saddles on day 1 after a substance collapse. His famous Twilight Zone role, about a salesman chasing illusions, now plays like an omen. Friends said they saw flashes, but read them as lightning, not flares. Hollywood could spin soused charm into box office gold. It couldn't spin this. 25 names, one repeating blueprint. Image over honesty, fixers over therapists, bottles over help. The few who broke the loop, Taylor, Grant, Nimoy, proved recovery isn't just possible. It can reshape an entire industry's attitude. If any of this felt uncomfortably familiar, remember what most of these stars couldn't. Addiction is an illness, not a flaw. Help exists. Use it. Whose downfall rattled you most? Which legend do you think still has a sealed file somewhere? Tell me below. Tap subscribe for stories the studios hoped you'd never hear. Because next week's dossier makes these look quaint. They buried the bottles. Don't bury the warning signs. And if you spot a piece of yourself or someone you love in any of this, do what Hollywood didn't. Talk. A phone call beats a fixer, a meeting beats a martini, and a friend beats a flask. Every single time. See you in the next dive.